All right, welcome everyone to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at something pretty specific, pretty niche even, but I think it's a good illustration of a decision a lot of businesses face.
I think so too.
We're going to be taking a deep dive into choosing the right software, specifically marina management software.
That's right. We've got Queens Cove Marina. They're looking at upgrading their systems, trying to figure out what's going to work best for them.
And we've got a ton of material here, a bunch of stuff to go through, feature lists, pricing breakdowns.
Integrations, user reviews, we've got it all.
The whole 9 yards. Now, Queens Cove, they've got about 300 slips.
Right.
They've got a fuel dock, and they've got service departments. So our mission here is to look at two specific software options.
Prolifik HMS.
HMS.
That stands for Hospitality Management System.
Okay.
And LightSpeed DMS, which is Dealership Management System.
And figure out which one seems like the better fit for Queens Cove.
Exactly. And really, I think the important thing here is, thinking about priorities. What would you prioritize if you were running Queens Cove?
Right.
Is it cost? Is it ease of use, especially for those seasonal staff? Or how well it integrates with your existing tools?
Yeah.
All good questions to keep in mind.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in. We'll start with Prolifik HMS. Now, their cost structure is interesting.
Yeah.
It's a one-time license fee for their Enterprise Edition, $2,999. So that's a big chunk of change up front.
It is.
But it's not a subscription.
Right.
You're buying the software outright.
And that's really important to consider because that means your core costs are pretty predictable.
Right. Now, they do offer an optional support and maintenance plan, $149.99 per month.
And that gives you weekday support. Crucially, also after-hours emergency support.
Okay.
And it includes software updates.
So it seems like it's pretty comprehensive, right?
Oh, but they also give you the option of pay-as-you-go support. So if you don't want to be locked into that monthly fee, you can just pay $65 an hour as needed.
Got it.
And updates can also be purchased separately.
So there's a lot of flexibility there.
Definitely. It really lets Queens Cove choose what level of support and how often they want updates.
Right. Now, another interesting thing is that there are no per-user license fees.
Which is a huge advantage.
Especially for a marina where staffing levels can really fluctuate.
Yeah, you have those seasonal workers coming in and out, so not having to pay per user can really save them some money.
One thing to note, though, the gas pump integration hardware, that's not included in the base price.
Right, so that's an additional cost they'll have to factor in if they want to automate their fuel dock.
Okay. So we've talked about the cost. Let's talk about how Prolifik actually fits into a marina's existing systems.
Yeah, so Prolifik is what they call an all-in-one solution.
Okay.
Which means it's designed to replace a lot of the separate systems that Queens Cove might already be using.
Like what?
Well, for example, they have a built-in accounting module.
Okay.
This includes accounts receivable, general ledger, accounts payable, the whole shebang.
So they could potentially get rid of QuickBooks altogether.
They could.
That's pretty significant.
It is. And a lot of businesses like the idea of having everything in one system. It can simplify things quite a bit.
But what if they're really attached to QuickBooks? Or what if their accountant is insistent?
Well, the thing is, Prolifik doesn't directly sync with QuickBooks. There's no, out-of-the-box API.
What does that mean, practically speaking?
It means you can't have the two systems talking to each other in real time.
So how would they get their financial data into QuickBooks if they needed to?
They can export it from Prolifik and then import it into QuickBooks.
Okay, so it's an extra step, not quite as seamless.
Exactly.
All right. What about other tools? Queens Cove probably uses a POS system for their fuel dock and maybe some kind of time tracking for their service department.
Well, good news there. Prolifik has a built-in POS module.
Oh, okay.
So they could potentially use that instead of their existing POS system.
So it could even replace LightSpeed POS if that's what they're using?
It could.
Interesting.
And they also have a service center and work orders module, specifically for tracking staff time on jobs.
Okay.
So again, they could potentially ditch their separate time tracking app and just use Prolifik for everything.
So you're saying Prolifik is really trying to be the one-stop shop?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now let's talk about how user-friendly Prolifik is.
Yeah.
Especially for a marina environment.
Well, from what I've gathered, it's designed to be very intuitive for marina staff.
What makes you say that?
Well, for starters, it has an interactive marina map, so you can actually click on a slip and see who's renting it, the status, all that good stuff.
So it's visually very clear.
Exactly. And it also has simple menus for all the common tasks like creating contracts, scheduling things, processing fuel sales.
So would you say it's pretty easy for seasonal staff to pick up?
I think so. They don't have to learn a whole bunch of features that aren't relevant to what they're doing.
Hmm.
And the user reviews I've seen praise its ease of use.
Okay, that's good to hear. Now let's talk about automation. How does Prolifik help marinas automate their processes?
Well, it handles some of the big ones,
Like,
like contract renewals and a recurring billing. That can save a ton of time.
so it just takes care of all that automatically.
Pretty much. You set it up and let it run.
That's great. And what about communicating with customers?
Well, they've got mass email capabilities, so if they need to send out a newsletter or an important announcement, they can do that pretty easily.
Okay,
And of course, if they integrate the gas pump, that automates fuel transactions as well.
makes sense. Now, does Prolifik have any really fancy customer interaction features, like online portals or anything like that?
It doesn't seem like it. It's more focused on the traditional methods:
Okay.
phone calls, emails, printed invoices.
So not quite as cutting edge on that front. All right. But what about the service department? How does Prolifik help them track their work and make sure they're billing accurately?
Their service and work order module is really well designed.
Okay. How so?
So technicians log their hours directly into the work orders,
Okay.
and they can also track the materials used for each job.
So everything's all in one place,
Exactly.
which makes billing much more straightforward, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. And managers can also compare the actual time spent on a task against the initial estimate.
Which helps with efficiency, right?
Right. And it also helps to make sure they're billing accurately for all the work that's being done.
Okay. Now, what about financial reporting? What kind of insights can Queens Cove get from Prolifik?
Well, it has all the standard financial reports you'd expect:
Such as?
profit and loss, balance sheets, aging reports, all that good stuff.
Okay, so they can get a pretty clear picture of their financial health.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, they have day-end processing and reports for daily reconciliation, which is really useful for marinas that handle a lot of cash transactions.
Makes sense.
And they also have operational reports, like slip occupancy and rental statuses.
So they can see how well they're utilizing their slips.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. They also have a custom reports designer.
Oh, wow. So they can create their own reports if the standard ones don't quite cut it.
Exactly. So if there's some specific piece of information they need, they can usually pull it out.
That's pretty cool. Now, what about support and training? What if they run into trouble?
Well, Prolifik is a smaller vendor, so their support seems to be pretty personalized.
Okay.
If Queens Cove goes with the support plan, they get weekday support and after-hours emergency support.
Okay. So they're covered if something goes wrong in the middle of the night.
Right. And you might even be talking directly to the developers, from what I've heard.
Oh, wow. So they're getting that high-touch support.
It seems like it.
Plus, they have a free 30-day trial, so Queens Cove can try it before they buy it. And they offer one-on-one training during onboarding.
And they're both located in Ontario,
That's right.
so they'll probably understand each other pretty well.
Exactly.
But it's important to note that without the support plan, it's pay per hour for help.
Right.
Okay, now before we move on to LightSpeed, any limitations or considerations Queens Cove should keep in mind with Prolifik?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. For starters, it's a Windows-based installed system.
So not cloud-based.
Right. So they might not have that sleek, modern web interface or mobile apps that some other systems have.
Okay, that's something to consider.
And also, it doesn't have a ton of third-party integrations.
So it might not play nicely with every other piece of software they're using.
Right. And it's also not a payroll system, so they'd still need a separate solution for that.
Okay, anything else?
Well, the CRM and marketing features are pretty basic.
So it's not a marketing powerhouse. Right. And the user interface, while functional, might not be as visually polished as some newer systems.
But as long as it does the job, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for its core marina functions, it seems to do the job very well.
Okay, so that's Prolifik HMS. Let's turn our attention now to LightSpeed DMS. And let's start, as we did with Prolifik, with their cost structure.
All right. Well, right off the bat, it's a subscription model.
Okay, so that's different from Prolifik's one-time license fee.
Right. And while they do mention base packages starting around $2,995, the actual cost for Queens Cove is going to depend on a lot of factors.
Like?
Well, the number of user licenses they need, which modules they choose, like if they want sales, service, parts, accounting, all that, and also the cost of training.
So that $2,995, that's really just a starting point.
It is. It could be a lot more expensive depending on their specific needs.
And there are probably additional costs for certain things.
Right. Like, for instance, integrating with QuickBooks is an extra cost.
Huh.
And they also charge more for some of the more advanced features.
Okay, so the pricing is a little bit more opaque.
I'd say so. And user feedback suggests that Lightspeed can end up being more expensive than other systems that offer similar functionality.
Okay, that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and of course with a subscription, they're going to have those ongoing monthly or annual fees, plus the cost of a support contract.
So potentially a lot higher costs over the long run.
Potentially, yes.
Okay, let's talk about integration. How well does Lightspeed play with other systems, especially QuickBooks?
So Lightspeed is designed to be a comprehensive system, but its integration with QuickBooks is a little bit messy.
Okay. How so?
Well, it does have its own built-in accounting system, so Queen's Cove could switch over completely from QuickBooks Desktop.
All right.
But they also recently introduced an integration with QuickBooks Online.
Oh, okay.
But the user reviews on that integration haven't been great.
Like, what kind of issues are people having?
People are reporting things like duplicate data entries and missing information.
Oh, that sounds frustrating.
Yeah, and most importantly, there's no native integration with QuickBooks Desktop.
Which is what Queen's Cove is currently using.
Exactly.
Okay, so that could be a big roadblock.
It could be.
What about time tracking for their service department and their POS system at the fuel dock?
Well, Lightspeed's service module does include time tracking built into the work orders.
Okay.
So they could potentially get rid of QuickBooks time or Bill 4 time if that's what they're using.
Right.
And it integrates with ADP for payroll.
Okay. And what about their point of sale system?
LightSpeed DMS has its own parts and sales interface.
Oh.
So basically, it would replace a standalone Lightspeed POS system.
So if they're already using Lightspeed POS, they'd have to switch over to the DMS version.
Right.
Interesting.
And in general, it seems like people who use Lightspeed DMS tend to switch over to using it for everything rather than trying to integrate it piecemeal with other systems.
Especially if they're using QuickBooks Desktop.
Especially then, yeah.
Okay, now, how user-friendly is Lightspeed? Especially in a marina setting with a lot of seasonal staff.
Well, this is where it gets a little tricky.
How so?
Because Lightspeed is a dealership management system. It's designed to work for lots of different industries, not just marinas.
Okay.
So it's inherently more complex than a system like Prolifik that's specifically for marinas.
Right, so it's more of a general purpose tool.
Exactly. And the user interface, it's deeper, it's more layered. You've got to navigate through different departments and modules.
So not as intuitive.
The user reviews give it a moderate usability rating, about 3.6 out of 5. So it's not terrible, but it's not the easiest to pick up either.
So maybe not ideal for those seasonal workers who are only there for a few months.
Right. They might need more training to get up to speed, and even then it might take some time to really get comfortable with it.
Okay, so the learning curve could be steeper with Lightspeed.
Definitely.
All right. Now let's move on to automation and customer experience. What does Lightspeed offer in these areas?
Well, this is where Lightspeed really shines.
Okay, how so?
It's got some really modern features like built-in text messaging.
Yeah.
So Queen's Cove could send out appointment reminders or service updates directly to their customers' phones.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah. And it's got integrated e-signature functionality. So getting work orders or rental agreements signed should be a lot easier.
Okay. And anything else that really stands out?
Yeah, they have this cool thing called technician video.
Technician video, what's that?
So basically, technicians can record short videos of a boat, maybe documenting its condition or explaining a repair,
Oh, wow.
and then they can share that video directly with the customer.
So it's all about transparency and getting things approved faster.
Exactly. Plus, they've got a mobile app for field staff.
So technicians can use it out on the docks.
Right. They can upload photos, capture signatures, all that stuff.
Very convenient.
And on the automation side, their service scheduler helps optimize appointment scheduling and follow-ups. And they have integrated credit card processing, which is always a plus.
So it's packed with features.
It is.
Okay, but even though it's a little bit more complex, it does offer a lot of tools for improving efficiency and the customer experience.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, let's talk about tracking work and billing in the service department. How does Lightspeed handle that?
Well, like Prolifik, it lets technicians clock in and out of repair orders so their time is tracked accurately.
Okay.
But Lightspeed takes it a step further. They've got some really sophisticated productivity tracking tools for managers.
Oh, okay. Like what?
Well, they can see technician hours, build hours, really drill down into the service department's efficiency.
That's pretty detailed.
It is. You can even assign multiple technicians to a job and set different labor rates for each one.
So it's very flexible.
Yeah, and there's a real-time connection between parts, inventory, labor tracking, and invoicing.
So they can make sure everything's accounted for and billed correctly.
Exactly. And they also offer reports specifically focused on efficiency, like technician performance stats.
So Queen's Cove can really analyze their service operations and look for ways to improve.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, what about LightSpeed's reporting capabilities in general?
This is another area where LightSpeed really excels. They've got a ton of built-in reports covering everything from accounting and service to parts and even sales.
Oh, wow. So a very comprehensive suite of reports.
Very comprehensive. They've got your standard financial reports, but also reports that combine data from different departments. So, for instance, they could see a breakdown of revenue by service, slip rentals, and retail sales all in one report.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is. They also have reports that help identify cost leakages and to assess profitability. And they have detailed reports for service like work order status, technician efficiency, warranty claims.
Okay.
And for parts and inventory management, they can track stock levels, turnover rates, all sorts of things.
Sounds like they've thought of everything.
It seems like it. And while you might not have as much flexibility to customize reports like you do in Prolifik, they have so many pre-built reports that you can usually find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And if not, you can always export the data and analyze it in a different tool.
Okay. Now, what about support and training with LightSpeed?
Well, as a larger company, LightSpeed has a more structured support system.
Okay.
They've got lots of training materials like webinars and online knowledge bases, and they usually assign a dedicated implementation specialist to help with the initial setup.
So they hold your hand through the whole process.
Pretty much, yeah. And they have a resource hub and a tech support portal.
So it sounds pretty good so far.
But here's the thing. The user reviews on their ongoing customer support are kind of mixed.
Oh, what are people saying?
Some people describe it as marginal. Others complain about slow response times. And often, you're dealing with a ticket system or a call center, so you might not always be talking to the same person.
So the support might not be as consistent. Okay, so that's definitely something Queen's Cove should consider.
It is. And the sources even suggest that they might need to have some internal power users who can provide ongoing training and support to other staff.
Okay, so they might need to be a little bit more self-sufficient with LightSpeed.
It seems that way.
All right, so before we wrap things up, any final limitations or considerations for Queen's Cove with LightSpeed?
Yeah. I think the biggest one is that it's fundamentally a dealership management system.
Okay.
It's not specifically designed for managing marina slips.
Right. It's more geared towards selling boats.
Right. So it doesn't have built-in modules for things like managing slip contracts, tracking occupancy, handling wait lists.
Yeah, and those are all pretty crucial for a marina.
Absolutely. They'd probably have to find workarounds or maybe use third-party integrations to manage those things.
Okay, so not ideal.
Not ideal, no. Plus, as we talked about, a lot of the advanced features and integrations cost extra, and the integration with QuickBooks Online seems to be problematic, and there's no native integration with QuickBooks Desktop.
Which is what they're currently using.
Right. And then there are those concerns about customer support being inconsistent.
Right.
And honestly, LightSpeed is a very complex system. It might just be overkill for a single location marina that's mainly focused on slips, fuel, and service.
So they might be paying for a lot of features they don't actually need.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've taken a really deep dive into both Prolifik HMS and LightSpeed DMS. So based on all this information, what's your overall assessment? Which system seems like a better fit for Queen's Cove?
You know, after looking at all the sources, I think Prolifik HMS is probably the better choice for them right now.
What makes you say that?
Well, it's really designed with marinas in mind. It's
Yeah.
built to handle the things they do every day. Slip rentals, dock management, fuel sales, service work.
Yeah.
It can replace all those separate systems they're probably using right now, like QuickBooks Desktop, their time tracking app, their POS system. And it has the potential to be more cost-effective in the long run compared to LightSpeed's subscription model.
And you said it's easier to use.
From what I've gathered, yes.
Huh.
Especially for seasonal staff, which is a big plus.
Yeah.
And it has those specific features that marinas need, like the slip mapping and fuel pump integration.
So it's more tailored to their specific needs.
Exactly.
Okay, so why is LightSpeed maybe not the best choice for them right now?
Well, it's great if you're a big marine dealership that's selling a lot of boats.
Which Queen's Cove isn't.
Right. And it doesn't have those built-in tools for managing slip contracts and occupancy, which are crucial for a marina.
Right.
And it's just a much more complex system overall, which can be a headache. And the customer support seems a bit iffy.
So it's a trade-off, right? You've
Yeah.
got a specialized system that's really good at what it does, but maybe doesn't have all the bells and whistles. And then you have this more powerful, more general system that's got all these advanced features, but maybe it's overkill for what Queen's Cove actually
And
needs.
potentially more expensive.
Exactly. So what's your final recommendation for Queen's Cove?
I'd say go with Prolifik HMS. It just seems like the smarter choice for them right now. It'll help them improve their efficiency, consolidate their systems, and it directly addresses their core business needs. And if they need more advanced features later on, they can always look into adding those on.
Sounds like a solid plan.
Yeah.
All right, so to recap for our listeners, especially those at Queens Cove Marina, we've looked at Prolifik HMS and LightSpeed DMS in detail, considering all the factors that are important to a marina.
Cost, integration, ease of use, you name it.
And based on everything we've seen, Prolific seems like the better fit for their current needs. They're primarily focused on slips, fuel, and service.
Right.
And Prolific is designed to handle all of that really well.
Exactly.
And this brings up an interesting point. Choosing the right software is so crucial for any business.
It is.
And it's not always about getting the fanciest, most feature-rich system.
Sometimes the simpler, more focused solution is actually the better choice.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right tool for the job.
And sometimes what seems like similar businesses on the surface might actually have very different software needs.
That's a great point. And it makes you wonder what other industries are out there that might have these kind of hidden, unique software requirements. So for all of you listening, have you ever faced a similar decision? What did you prioritize? What factors did you consider? We'd love to share your thoughts.
Yeah, let us know.
And that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.